pull out free sparring, within free sparring we have all these different types of scenarios. First one, obviously, is one-on-one. So we have one partner and we just spar with that one person, all right? And we start that at colour belt. We tend to start that, as you know, at sort of green stripe, green belt level. But if they want to get their sparring kit at yellow belt, there's nothing wrong with that. They can start to do that within the classes that we have. But generally speaking, green belt, green stripe, and then above. So colour belts, we're just looking at one-to-one free sparring. And then when we move into black belt level, or from black stripe going to black belt, we look against 2 versus 1 or 1 versus 2. Okay? And that's just increasing our game, increasing the element of defense, understanding, and all of the elements within free sparring with these 2 opponents that are putting pressure on us. Then we could do 2-on-2. You might think, well, how does that work? We have done it. I have done it occasionally where you've got 2 people against 2 people. So you're almost working together against these 2 people. And it could swap over. So you might start off with this person. And then this person that comes around here, and this person is here, and this person starts attacking you. So this person has to then attack that person. So then it swaps around. So you start off with one person and you end up with somebody else. All right? But you're still trying to work together in free sparring scenario with these other 2 people. A little bit interesting. Maybe when we get back out of lockdown, we get back to the dojo, we can look a bit more in these types of free sparring within the dojo at a black belt and above, maybe 2nd, 3rd degree and above. We've also got other types. We've got 1 versus 3 and 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. You can have any, and until you get a little bit too ridiculous, too many people, like King of the Ring, everybody in together. Obviously, that's a completely different entity in itself. But we have done 1 versus 3 for 3rds or 4ths and above. And then we have also done 1 versus 4 for 5th degrees and above. So maybe that's something we could look at a little bit more to try and, as a different concept, as a different understanding within the dojo. Okay. So free sparring then. What I'd like us to think about, yes, we will do a few techniques. We'll do a little bit of a warm-up. We'll do a few techniques, and then I'll talk, and then we'll do some more techniques. That's sort of how today is going to go within the next 3/4 of an hour. So what I'd like you to be thinking about doing, teaching, if you're an instructor, so bear with me, I'm going to be flitting about from just a student and also a student and instructor, and what we need to be thinking about and the concepts that we need to be thinking about. What I'd like you to understand is that free sparring in the dojo is a different concept to free sparring in competition, nationally and internationally. We have the open squad trainings for people that possibly want to dip their toe into that type of sparring. They might come to the open squad, they might love it, they might keep coming to the open squad, and then I will have a look at those people, and then we will maybe, if the juniors, invite them to the squad training, or if they're adults, they're welcome to come to the squad training. And then it will go on from there, as you know. And that would be a completely different entity. What I'd like you to understand is we are not boxers, we're not kickboxers, we're Taekwondo practitioners. Although, having said that, as a martial artist, we should be so open-minded that we can adapt, right? We have to adapt. In self-defense, you have to be adaptive. You have to be adaptive. You have to be able to be open-minded, to work on an instant, to work and to defend yourself from an attack that's just not normal, and that crosses over into free sparring as well. So for me, I'm not a boxer. I've never done boxing. I've never done kickboxing, but I've done lots of Taekwondo sparring, competitions and so on. I'm a Taekwondo practitioner. However, as an instructor, I want my students to excel in what they want to excel in. So if there are people that want to do competitions, then I have to be open-minded enough to look at what's going on there, develop the techniques, because boxing, if you ask me, boxing is quite easy. It's just punching the hands out, doing this movements here, and we can do it. If we can do all the intricate moves that we do in Taekwondo, we can do boxing techniques easy, and we do. So if I'm looking at evaluating where people want to get to, so then I've got to evaluate and establish what we've got to do to get those people to that point. And it's worked. We have European champions, we have world champions, we have national champions. All right, so going right back to 2004, when I first instigated the Golden Dragons, as it was, I wanted to have people that were showing an interest in competition to develop and have somewhere where they could really be pushed, and we could then become a competitive club. Because before that, we weren't very competitive. I wasn't really too much interested in competitions as an instructor. For me, it was just a nightmare. I hated competitions, and it was just an absolute nightmare, and I didn't really want to go. Yes, I've done them and I've been there and seen it, but I didn't want to open up my students to all of those elements. However, when you get certain students that wish to do that, you have to give them a pathway. As an instructor, you have to look at all the different possibilities that you need to give your students what they want. All right. And I'm not saying you have to give your students what they want to keep them to enable you to line your pockets. I'm talking about the ethos and the understanding of what martial arts is about, is to encourage and to develop character. And if those people want that aspect of it, then I shall give them that aspect to the best of my ability. And it's working. So that's over there. Within the dojo, I want us to understand and portray and train the fact that free sparring is a very small element of Taekwondo in regard to technique, but it's a huge element in regard to character building. We must never give up on free sparring, no matter what age we are or what grade we are. We must never give up on free sparring. Yes, some of us won't like the confrontation, right? So we are two types of people, okay? Some people like confrontation. Some people like an argument. Some people like to have a discussion. Some people like to get their point across. Other people don't want to have an argument. They'd rather just move away, get out of the situation, and not have any confrontation. Now that crosses straight into free sparring. Because at the end of the day, what have you got in front of you? You've got this person in front of you that is confronting you, right? So if you are the type of person that doesn't like confrontation, you're not going to like free sparring. Now, I'm not saying that if you like free sparring, you are an argumentative, confrontational person. Not at all, okay? And I'm also not saying that if you aren't a confrontational person, you don't like free sparring, and you think there's no way of liking free sparring. There is. We just have to understand how to get to that point, all right? Or how to get our students to that point where they do start to enjoy free sparring. And we can do that within the dojo if we tell them, instruct them, and show them how to really understand free sparring. Okay? So that's sort of one element, really, is the understanding of who we are. So we may be the type of person, or you may be teaching the people. Let's look at ourselves first. You may be the type of person that when you get hit, you want to cry, right? Or you want to just give up. You want to take your gloves off and finish. That's it, okay? Now, you could say, well, that's how I am. I have a problem with that when people say that's how I am. If you were a murderer and you say, that's how I am, that's okay, is it? Of course not, right? Surely, if you're a murderer, don't get me wrong, I don't really know much about murderers, but maybe they've got something gone wrong in their minds and they actually, are okay with that. But I would say maybe somebody murders somebody, or somebody kills somebody by mistake or because of anger or something like that, then they want to change that personality, right? If you are somebody that keeps offending somebody by things of what you say, now surely you don't want to keep offending people. As a martial artist, we should be living by the 5 tenets of Taekwondo: courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, indomitable spirit. Surely the courtesy aspect is that we don't want to keep offending people. So if you turn around and say, well, that's who I am, then for me, that's not good enough. You need to walk away from Taekwondo because we need to change our character. So this is where free sparring comes into it. And maybe you haven't even thought of it like that. But for me, this is where the exciting part of free sparring is, in the development of our character. And we address it and we hit it face on. We might get hit, want to cry, take our gloves off, give up, sit down, right? But we mustn't. Very important. We are Taekwondo practitioners that have developed and got to where we are already. And surely we can get beyond that step. Surely we can say, well, no, actually, I don't like it. I understand I don't like it. I understand I don't like getting hit. But what can I do to overcome this hurdle? Because that's the next step for you in your Taekwondo journey. Some of you might be that you can't remember your patterns. So you've got to overcome that hurdle. And the way to overcome that hurdle and free sparring is practice and do it, and understand it when you're doing it. All right, so it's very important. So that's the character building. For me, that is the biggest and most positive part of free sparring. Even in competition, when I see some of these students that are competing internationally, that are practicing their patterns over and over again, you see a huge difference in their pattern practice when it comes to gradings, and students that do week in, week out dojo training, not interested in competitions. You see the difference in not just the ability, but the attitude as well. And I'm not saying you have to enter competitions to be able to have a good grading. I'm just saying you see the benefits of those people that do enter competitions. For me, that is the benefit. Not, that far outweighs the negatives that happen in competition. So let's understand us. Are we a flight person or are we a fight person, right? So straight away, you can understand. If you go, if you see one of your students or yourself, attack comes in and you close your eyes, or they close their eyes and they turn their head, right? Now that's a natural flight response. They think they're going to get hit, so they flinch. If you see somebody as you're teaching or yourself, and as you see the punch coming in, you actually attack as they punch you, that's a flight response. And as soon as somebody puts their pads on, from my experience over all these years, I can tell if somebody's a flight or fight within about 30 seconds of the first time they've sparred. And you as an instructor are probably developing that instinct as well, or that ability to see that. You see some of these younger students, these juniors, they get their pads, you watch them and you can go, yes, they are a fighter. Or, okay, they're a flight and they need to work on that. Now, if you're a flight instinct, doesn't mean to say you can't do sparring. Of course you can. You just have to train. Because does that mean if you're not very good at remembering patterns, that means you can't do patterns and you don't do patterns? Of course it doesn't. You have to keep practicing those patterns to keep remembering them and make it muscle memory, keep doing it. Now, if you're fortunate enough to develop that muscle memory so you don't have to think about your patterns, then that's fantastic, and that's the point that we need to get to. But within free sparring, again, you need to develop and understand who you are so you can overcome it. So rather than somebody attacks you, you close your eyes and you flinch, you just move, right? If you move, they can't attack you because you've got out of the range of distance or range of that attack. So control it. So you're here. So if you don't like free sparring, the best thing for you to do is counterattack or just look at your defense, right? Now, because this is a black belt class now, this is a black belt session, I shouldn't need to tell you need to be facing half facing or side facing, right? You should know that. None of you should really be sparring full facing this way. I hope not. There was a colour belt session earlier, then obviously I went through the positions of the body and the understanding of what we're doing there, right? But we can still look at all the elements because we may well be an instructor. Somebody's just made a comment. I'll read that in a minute, and then if I can answer that, then I will. So if you're an instructor, it may well be that you need to understand these elements so that you can teach that. If you're not an instructor, it's great to understand these elements so then you can practice it within the dojo. So your first one is defense, okay? Defense, what's Freddie saying? Are you either one or the other with no in between? I don't understand that question, Freddie. Are you either one or the other with no in between? Not sure what you mean by that. Explain a bit more. So first thing is defense. So remember, that's how you're positioning, right? So that's your positioning. Either this way, this way, this way, this way, however you are comfortable. So if I was to say to you, okay, everybody, chumbi, this way. Now go into a ready position for sparring. Chumbi. Okay. So me, I instinctively go back like this, right? So I've got this covered, this covered, this covered. I can change this way if I need to. All right? So I would come back this way with my right leg forwards because I'm more comfortable kicking with my right leg because I'm right-footed. You may well step back with your other leg. That's absolutely fine. So maybe within the dojo, especially within a competition, if you're an umpire or something like that, then you just say ready position, chumbi. So free sparring, chumbi, and then they decide how they're comfortable. Yes, when we're doing set sparring, we go back with the right leg, guarded block this way, because we need to attack with the right first. But free sparring, entirely up to them. So we're thinking about our defense, always thinking about our defense. Okay, Freddie, can you only be a fight or flight with no in between? Okay, so Freddie Cruz asked this question. Can you either be a flight or fight with no in between? No. You could be a bit of both, all right? You could be a bit of both. I'm just trying to categorize it to make us understand that we have these two possible different scenarios, right? You could well be somebody that does flinch but doesn't move back so much. So yes, there's lots of variables in there, all right? So please don't misunderstand. You haven't just got this type of person and just got this type of person. What you'll find, if you're somewhere in between, you will develop the fighting ability or the ability to spar a little bit quicker than the person is a complete flight instinct, but not so quick and natural as the person that is a fight instinct. I hope that's answered your question. Okay, thanks, Freddie. Good question. If you've got any more questions, anybody, sort of like as I'm talking in between doing the stuff, then obviously you can ask those questions. Does everybody understand that? Excellent. So thinking of your defense, right? So there's no point attacking all the time because your defense is gone. Defense, we should know now as black belts, your defense is the most important part of free sparring or anything, self-defense, anything, your defense, right? That's your most important part. We must never attack all the time, all right? Yes, in a minute, the next element is instant attack and counter-attack, but we mustn't always attack. We've got to wait, we've got to move, all right? You've got to be thinking about your defense. Now, it could be that you get hit and you're the type of person that sees red and you get angry and then you start to just come forward all the time. Now, if that was me sparring you, I would welcome that, you know, and then this is a bit wrong to teach, but I would maybe dig a little one in a bit more to make you even more angry. So then you come at me even more and then I can pick you off left, right, and center, right? So that's my tactical brain. That's me trying to implement something and deceive you in doing something that you don't really want to do, but you can't control it. So if we're the type of person that when we get hit, we see anger and we want to hit that person as hard as we can and we want to retaliate, we have to control that. We've got to control that because your defense will just go, right? Very important. So are you that type of person? If you are that type of person, then you need to control that aggression. You need to have some self-control with what you're doing. If you're the type of person that gets hit and you want to cry, then again, we need to establish, why do we want to cry? Why do we want to give up? Let's look at why we got hit. Is our defense not good enough, right? Did we not keep our eyes open? Did we not move? You know, did we not create the space in either double stepping or shifting? Okay, very important. So this is where free sparring is that development of character, building of character, understanding of our character, right? So let's have a guard position. Ready? Good. Now the next one is instant attack and counter attack. So let's just do a jab this way. So that's your first technique. So there's no point just jabbing. So if I'm here, there's no point jabbing here because as soon as I move my arm, they're going to move, right? So we have to get close. We have to shift this way, right? So we're going to have to shift forwards, or we're going to have to double step forwards this way. So we get into our opponent and doing an instant attack if we're quick enough. The problem with that is if we do an instant attack, they could do a counter. So we have to be wary of that, or we have to be a bit more overpowering on those techniques and really positive with those techniques that they can't do a counter attack because they're so concentrating on their defense, right? So that's your instant attack. Instant attack and counter attack could be, if you like, you attack, they attack, so then you attack. So it's almost like countering their counter. So you do that, they block, try and block you, attack you here. So they block your arm, they come for a punch here, then you block, and then you do your counter. Okay, so you've done an instigation of technique, if you like, which also crosses over with a bit of deception. So in other words, we did this jab, but it wasn't the jab that was the real attack. It was to create them to do something, right? So that moves us on to deception. So we are making our opponent do something. So from here, I just want you to do that jab with that shift. So you're going to shift forward with the jab. Good. Come back. Good. Come back. So you're pushing forward. Remember, we've got to get the distance. Ready? Good. I'm back. Good. I'm back. Good. Now, this is just to bring the guard up. So when the guard comes up, boom, we're going to come in down middle section. So you keep doing this, they keep doing this, and then you're going to go into here, right? The only thing you've got to be careful of there is they may well be trying to draw you in to punch them here, depending on how experienced they are, okay? So what you have to be careful of is obviously you go up like this, and then as you come down here, they come over the top. So two things you could do there. You could just cover as you come in here, or you could know that they're going to do that and then block again and counter. Again, it's just evolution, evolving, adapting, modifying, progression. Now, you might be the type of person that says, well, I can't think like that. My brain doesn't think like that. Then that's fine. Just slow down. Just think to yourself, within this spar, or tonight, we're in the dojang, we put our pads on, we come to do free sparring, okay? You're just going to think about your defense, right? And your counter-attacking. That's all you're going to do. So you're going to work on a specific area, personally for you. And that's what the dojang is for, is to understand how you can progress with that, how you can understand that, how you can develop with that, right? So you might think to yourself, well, there's no way I can think that quickly. There's no way I can think that quickly to do those techniques. So don't. It's not a problem. You don't have to. You're here, they punch you, you cover. They punch you, you cover. They punch you, you try and do a little counter-attack and you move. But work on your movement. Work on your shifting. Work on that double stepping, the change of stances, double step or single step backwards. Work on something. Break it down, okay? Selecting of a proper target. We've got to be careful, right? When we're free sparring, we can't attack below the waist. We can't attack to the back of the head. We can't attack towards the back. So we have to be thinking about, well, what leg have I got forward? How are they standing, right? So if I kick with this leg, if they're sort of mirroring me, I'm going to be kicking towards their back. So I can't do that. So I have to maybe swap my stance and then come in with this kick here, so that then I'm kicking to this point here. Now, by the time we do that and I step in and do that, they could quite easily cover it this way. That's fine. What you're doing there is you're testing to see how they move, right? So you select your stances, your positioning, so that you can actually hit the correct target. You can use a deception. So you swap your stance, or even you come off the back leg, boom, see how they react, right? Now, if you come off the back leg, it could be that they try and attack you straight away. It could be that every time you attack, they attack you. So now you can work that out. So then you can do a feint. You can do a pretend technique. You can deceive to make them do something, see where the opening is, and then you can attack, right? So if you can't think like that quickly, not everybody can, and not everybody starts off like that. It's something that is developed, okay? So just concentrate on one thing. And again, I'm not talking about national competition, international competition, and competitors. I'm talking about free sparring within the dojang. As an instructor, trying to get our students to understand that it's a step-by-step process, right? A step-by-step process. You show them all these things. Defense, instant attack and counter-attack. Deception, right? Selection of the proper targets. So you've got to make sure you're in the right position to be able to attack those targets. Direction of the attack and defense, right? So that means the direction. So in other words, again, it's very similar to choosing the correct target area. If I'm going to kick with this leg, right, the direction of that is going to go and kick them in the back. The direction is going to kick them in the back of the head. So I need to change the angle of the attack. So I either just change my stance and attack, or I actually change and attack at the same time. So we're looking at the direction of the attack and your defense. So maybe they come in here and you move this way to do your counter attack. So your defense isn't just on a straight line, Your defense moves, covers, counter, right? So you're thinking about that. Within the dojo, experiment on technique, experiment with things, just like I've just been saying. Spend the whole of that night when we're doing that type, that's free spar. We might put our pads on after a warm up and spar for the whole night, right? For the whole half an hour, 35 minutes, whatever it is. Spend the whole of that time just thinking about your defense, right? Or just thinking about your front leg kicking, or just thinking about counter-attacking, right? Or just thinking about instant attack. So you're just trying to work through it. And then the next week, think about something else. And then the next week, think about something else. So you're taking on that responsibility as the student of Taekwondo to develop your free sparring, just like you develop your fundamental movements, just like you develop your patterns, just like you develop your set sparring, just like you develop your self-defense. We've got to look at free sparring like everything else. Development, right? Change of character, understanding who we are, using free sparring to understand who we are, not just think that, oh, I don't like that, I can't do that. Doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, what grade you are. We need to develop that. And there's no loss of face or negativity towards anybody, right? You may be a first degree, come up against a fourth degree, and you could be more advanced in free sparring than they are. Purely because you are a natural fighter, they might be a natural flight, right? Just because you're a first degree and they're a fourth degree, doesn't mean to say you're going to be less advanced in free sparring. You could be way more advanced in free sparring. It may be that you're an international competitor, so you're going to be even more advanced. So you don't use that as an advantage. You understand it doesn't matter about grade, right? It matters about personality. And then where your character changes with that is you do not take advantage of that person. You encourage that person and you help that person to become better, not by talking to them, not by patronizing them, but just by sparring. So controlled. You're stopping everything before it hits there. You're trying to help them develop and understand, right? So very important. You experiment with your technique. You may be here and you come in and you try this back kick and you think, oh, that didn't work. I'm going to leave that for now. Just shove that over there. And I'm going to try it off the back leg. Oh, okay, that may be a bit too much open, so that didn't really work. Yeah, I'm going to try this. Double step in on these punches and see how that's working. I'm going to try and double step and move to the side and see how that works. So you experiment with the things that we're looking at and that we've been showing you within the lessons. Okay? Experimentation, very important. Development of your tactics and maneuvers, footwork, right? So maybe one night you just really focus on your double stepping. Maybe another night you focus on your double stepping and you move to the sideways. Maybe you focus on your double stepping forwards. Maybe you just focus on moving to the side. Maybe you focus on shifting backwards and shifting forward, or single step shifting. So you're trying to develop and understand. So you can come back to this video and you can look at all these different elements. And then you can try and go away and practice those, all right? And then when we come back into the dojo, when we start thinking about and looking at free sparring, don't think, oh, I can't do that, I don't like that. Think of it as a challenge, something to just get right into and hit head on, right? But at the same time, we all have to understand that there are people out there that don't like free sparring. There are people out there that don't like that confrontation. So we have to encourage and help without patronizing, without putting them down, encourage them as we do that free sparring, right? So then we've also got dodging techniques, which is a lot to do with your footwork. Counter-attacking, so just thinking about the counter-attacking. Now, counter-attacking, remember, it's not about block and attack, right? Most counter-attacking, if not all counter-attacking, is almost simultaneously. So if I'm here and I'm going to deceive you now by lifting my guard up like that, right? Lifting my guard up, so now you want to attack me here. So now it's not a surprise, you see. I'm making you attack me. So I'm in control of that. As you come in, I'm going to do a punch at the same time. So as your leg comes up, you're actually getting punched before you've even kicked. So the counter-attack is almost a simultaneous attack, not a block and a counter-attack, right? Now, some of this stuff you'll see if you're looking at the other videos with the tips with Mrs. Rose and Mr. Callahan and Mr. Lahil, who are European world champions, all implemented things that I've been developing over these years. And these things have been working, of course, because, you know, it's produced results. So some of these things you'll be seeing within those tutorials. But what I'm sort of looking at is more of the philosophical aspect of free sparring and our character within the dojo. All right. What they're doing is they're showing you how they've got to that point, how they've become a world champion, how they've become a European champion with some of the techniques that they've used and the training that they've been doing. Okay. So it's very important that we have that sort of separation, that distinction. But there will be some crossovers. Okay. There will inevitably be crossovers. Footwork, dodging, counter-attacking, you know, it's all free sparring. Okay. It's all free sparring. And then obviously, trying to implement what we don't see so much in competition free sparring, flying techniques, you know, flying turning kick, flying reverse turning kick, multiple flying techniques. All right, you don't tend to do that in competition because it's a bit dodgy, right? It's not fast enough. You've got to get the right timing. You've got to be quite flexible. You've got to be really strong to get that right. So unless you are quite flexible, you know, younger, then you might see some of these flying techniques. You might see Mr. Callahan doing some of those stuff, which is fantastic. You know, sometimes we've been in competitions, I've said to him, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this if he's here now watching, sometimes we get in between rounds, and I know the fact that he's won, he's probably got 10 points on the board, the other person's probably got nothing. So I'll just say to him, I'll go out there and have some fun, all right? And then when you see him go out there, you'll see him do these 360 turning kicks, jump reverse turn, hook kicks and stuff like that, because he's then just having a bit of fun with what he's doing. He's not putting that person down. He's already beat that person, and he's very controlled and he's very humble and courteous with it. So unless you've got that ability in a competition, is very dangerous, or it can be very dangerous, right? You try and experiment and do flying kicks in a competition, potentially you've lost. Okay, so let's have a look at some of those aspects, right? For the last sort of 10 minutes, looking at some of the counter-attacking, looking at some of that footwork. So what I want you to do is go into a fighting position or a sparring position, your comfortable position, right? So from here, I just want you to do a jab with a shift. So you're going to go jab, shift like that. So what you've done there is you've gained some distance, right? You've done an initial attack. So maybe one night you're going to attack, but at the same time, really understanding your defense, always your defense. So let's do 10 of those. Ready? And shift and come back. Good. And come back. Good. Set. And come back. Net. And come back. Dos. And come back. Yo. And come back. Yeah. And come back. Yo. And come back. Yeah. Okay. Change your stance. So again, in boxing, you would not change your stance. If you're right-handed, your right hand will be back, and that would be it. If you're a southpaw, which is left-handed, your left hand will be back, right? Whereas in Taekwondo, we want to practice everything, right and left. We want to be holistic. We want to be whole. So from here, again, you're going to jab forward with that shift. Okay, ready? Good. Come back. And come back. Set. Come back. Net. Come back. Dos. Come back. Yellow. Come back. Yeah. Good. And change. Now what you're going to do, I want you to imagine somebody doing that to you. Right? So you're going to just shift back with a cover like that. Okay? So shift back with a block or a cover. Ready? And now, you notice what my other hand does? I don't just do that because that could be their deception in creating an opening here. So what I'm doing is I'm covering both. So as they try and punch me in the face, I'm doing that and that. So now if they try and deceive me by doing this, they're just going to punch onto my hand, right? So get ready, shift back, boom, one, and boom, one, good. Also, you notice I'm getting my head out of the way. So I'm always thinking about my defense. This is blocking, head out of the way, covering my body here. And good. And set, good. And change stance. Same thing, good. And good. And set, good. So again, remember, head out of the way, cover, right? Now they could, if you think about it, they could do this and do this. And then they notice that you've gone like that, right? So you've tried to get your head out of the way and block. Now look what's happened, completely opened here. So what you could do, if you can think like this, is change it. So if you notice that they keep punching you in a certain way or keep kicking you in a certain way, you've got to cotton on that they are trying to deceive you. They're trying to do a dummy technique. They're trying to make you do something that they want you to do. So you have to have the understanding that, so they do that punch and you go back like that. Now they do it again, right? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change. They're not going to do it again because that third time could have been another punch, right? So that third time could have been something like that. So I'm here and I've gone like this and then I've got whacked in the side of the head, okay? So you've got to really open up to that. So maybe one night you're thinking about your defense. One night you're thinking about your counterattacking. One night you're thinking about your attacking. One night you're trying to work out what your opponent's doing and how they're working. And are they trying to make you do something that they want you to do? So you see, step by step by step by step by step by step. And then at some point, you will start to enjoy free sparring if you don't already. If you do enjoy free sparring, then obviously you're going to get better at it and you're going to understand it a little bit more. Okay? Okay, let's go back again. Your position, right? So now what you're going to do now is you're just going to gradually rocking backwards and forwards, lifting up this arm here. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to encourage my opponent to hit me here, right? So I'm doing this. I don't do this, obviously, because that's blatant. I just gradually moving around. I'm gradually lifting this arm this way. And now they can see this opening. And they're going to try and go for it. Now, they might go for it, say, with a punch this way. If they do, over the top, bang. If they come in with, say, a front leg side kick this way. If they do move to the side, bam, this way, all right? Or it could be this way, depending on what leg they use. Okay, so what I want you to do is whatever you want to do. So you're going to gradually lift this arm up, and then whether you do this, or whether you do this, or whether you do this, it's up to you when I shout. But I want you to do at the same time. So you lift this up at the same time, boom, counter attack, right? Either here, or here, or here. Okay, so come in here, block, and over the top. All right, okay, ready? Gradually lift it up, and good. Maybe change it a little bit, and good, and good, brilliant, and show, relax. Excellent. So we're thinking. We're trying to understand who we are, what we want to achieve, how we want to get better. And please understand, as a Taekwondo practitioner, free sparring is there, right? We have to be doing it, no matter who we are, okay? We need to be doing some free sparring. It may be, say, I join in with free sparring in the lesson, right? Some of you might be able to run rings around me, fitness-wise, if you like, but there might be an element of a little bit of a more control. So I may be able to control you a little bit more. I may have a little bit more advanced understanding of what techniques look like when they're coming. Okay, I built up a lot more pictures than maybe you have, depending on how long you've been training and what your experience is in free sparring. When it comes to competition, then, you know, there's no way my fitness level is going to be up with those people that are doing international, national competitions, squad training every week, okay? Yes, maybe if I wanted to do that, I could get to that point, personally, but I'm not at that point, right? So I would probably have to slow you down a little bit to try and implement stuff that I'm capable of doing at this time in my Taekwondo journey. So when we go back to the dojo, I want you to think about free sparring in a different way. As a student, I want you to really think about how you can enjoy free sparring. And it may be even the word free sparring is daunting, something that you don't want to do, something that you hate, something that you just don't want to even contemplate. If that's the case, please, 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 just step away, have a look at that, try to really understand why that is, and then try to change and slowly change your character towards becoming to the position of enjoying free sparring or getting to a point where you could possibly like free sparring. if you're an instructor, I want you to really think about this free sparring aspect. First, we need to be doing it. We need to be taking on board all of those aspects. You know, we need to be doing that free sparring, assessing our character, seeing who we are and where we are. And then when we're teaching, if you're teaching that element, looking at the students and trying to implement some of this stuff that we've been doing, look at the encyclopedia, read the encyclopedia, develop it from there. Then if we see anybody with potential that want to do competitions, we sort of edge them towards, which we do, and we are doing it. Okay, we are sort of looking at people, giving them invites to open squad. And then if they come to the open squad, we give them invites to the actual joining the squad. But what I want us to really understand and take away from this session, Taekwondo isn't always about physical activity. You haven't really sweat much on this session. Taekwondo is about everything, right? If you feel a bit underdone with this session, that you haven't worked up a sweat, then that's not my problem, that's your problem. What I suggest to you is that you really try to get to grips with what Taekwondo is. Taekwondo is also theoretical. Taekwondo has so much theory involved in what we're doing. Sometimes the lessons will be a lot more theoretical. Then we can go away and implement that. Yes, then we'll have a fitness session, a strengthening session, and so on. But don't think, as an instructor, never think that your students always have to go home with a sweat. Okay? That's not always the case. Sometimes the best sessions can be very technical, and you haven't even broke out into a sweat. Although, as black belt holders, that's quite difficult, because even a technical lesson, we really put that effort in when we do particular techniques. But please understand that sometimes there is lots of theory, okay? So what I want you to do, there's two things going on here. One is us as a student, evaluating and establishing who we are as a student, okay? Whether we are a flight instinct, as Freddie said, asked the question, we could be in between, or a fight instinct. Establish where we are with that. How can we change that? How can we help that? How can we adapt that? Are we somebody that wants to cry when we get hit? Are we somebody that wants to kill the other person when we get hit? That is what free sparring is about. Developmentation of character, not a gold medal, not whether we overcome our opponent. It's not self-defense. It's about character building, character changing. So even though you have an opponent, two opponents, three opponents in front of you, you're competing ultimately with yourself. Even the competitors that are world champions, and European champions, and national champions, UTA champions, they will also get to a point in their journey where they realize the biggest competition was with themselves. Okay? So, hopefully you can take away something from this session. And again, it wasn't so physical. We didn't really do too much stuff. It was a lot more theoretical, but hopefully you can face this way. Chale, Kunyi, and Hasa.